Greetings and welcome to another episode of Wife University. This is attorney author Herman Franck. Today I want to talk about the subject of the conditions for marriage. And what I mean by that is what kind of conditions would have to exist on the USA man's side before he would agree to marry the Asian woman. So I'm speaking from the perspective of an Asian woman who wants to be married to a USA man and really wants to know, what does it take? I mean, what am I supposed to do? How is that supposed to happen? I first want to point out more generally that this is the specific subject of my book, East-West Marriage, where I talk about, exactly how to do and what to do, and I give a lot of information in there about this subject. But I thought it might be helpful to give another kind of rendition of it, just to kind of bring it all forward again. I've also had some more time to think about it since I wrote the book, and I've also had a lot more experiences with a lot of other Chinese women who have taught me a lot of stuff. I've had a lot of discussions with some very interesting women who have given me all kinds of ideas. So I thought I would take another crack at it and explain some things here. The first thing I want to dispel or undo is a kind of myth I've heard many times that USA men actually don't want to be married and we're not serious about marriage. That's just not true. I can tell you that if you look up and down the streets of my neighborhood and many other kind of typical USA neighborhoods, you will find USA men all over the place who are married with a family. So the idea that we're somehow maybe, marriage scared or whatever is just not true. We are the marrying types. The standard living arrangement in the United States is a man and a wife and children and maybe a dog or two. Very normal. Now, there are some kind of new age relationships where people are together and not married, so there are some exceptions, obviously, but I want to assure you that American men, generally speaking, are very much willing, able, and do all the time get married. I also want to remind you that the typical male that is looking at an Asian woman is often someone who was married before, probably to a white girl, and now that didn't work out, and he's now trying something new, and he's decided to try his luck with an Asian girl. A lot of them may not know a whole lot about China or Asia, the cultural issues. What they know is, hey, you're pretty. And that they may not know a whole lot more. So one thing you'll always want to do as an Asian girl is if you meet a USA guy, kind of ask him questions to see how much he knows about China and what China is about and what Chinese culture is about. And I know most girls are not shy to do this. I get that a lot. Usually the first way of asking it is, have you ever been here before? And that's always a good start. I mean, if a guy's been there, that can make a difference. I stayed there for about 4 months, so that was my stay there. But I know other people have stayed there very long times. I know people that have been there multiple times. And then, of course, I know a lot of people who've never been there at all. So you'll find with the USA guy, we have all different levels of knowledge from zero to a whole lot. And so you'll have to kind of help the guy. And if you find a man who seems like a good guy, just because he doesn't know about China, I wouldn't give up on him. I would make it your job to kind of show him China and talk to him about it and what it means to be something I see so much of in profiles is a traditional Chinese woman looking for a traditional family life and a traditional marriage. And, you might want to think about that, what does it mean to you anyway? Because this is a big area where there can be some big problems between the USA man and the Chinese woman is our viewpoint of the roles of what a husband should do and what a wife should do in a marriage. And over here in USA, things are a little more blurred. We don't have these rules like you do this, I do that. Nowadays, in American marriages, everyone kind of, the concept is partnership, split up all jobs and duties, and the guy's taking care of the kids, going grocery shopping, doing laundry. The wife is out doing work and making money, and the man's making money, and everyone kind of does a little bit of everything. So this whole thing about, okay, you take care of the house, I take care of the job, that is no longer the case in USA. And I might add, even within Chinese marriages, I know many Chinese couples out here, and I see it all the time. The man and the woman are both working, making money, and, going forward in kind of almost like a USA style, but they're both Chinese from China. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about is a concept that I've seen quite a bit, where the Chinese woman knows she wants to marry a USA guy, and that can happen, for example, if they've had an unpleasant experience with a Chinese man. I know a lot of women who were married already, and they really, they had a bad marriage. Something wasn't quite right about it, and because of that, they want a white guy. And they've definitely got their eyes set on that. I know quite a few Chinese women who have told me, I will not date a Chinese guy. They just forget it. I won't do it. And I don't quite know what the heck happened over there with the Chinese men. If Chinese men are listening to this, I want you to know there are many women that are angry at you. I don't know what you did to them, but they're mad. And maybe someone needs to say, I'm sorry. I don't know. It might be that too many marriages over there are not based on a real passion, love situation, and they don't work because of that. And it's not really because the guy's a bad guy or the woman's a bad woman. It might just be that they're just not in love. And one of the experiences I can tell you, the story of my life, and the story told in Good Mom, Bad Wife, is if there's no love in the marriage, it's probably not going to be a good marriage. I can imagine a loveless marriage that still goes forward in a respectful and kind way, where the woman still respects the man and the man still respects the woman, and they have nice conversations, and they just kind of go more as a family bond, a friendship kind of thing, and it can still work. Or I can see a case like with my ex-wife, where it's just an endless nightmare, so it just depends. And I kind of think that may be why there's an issue with a lot of the Asian women I'm meeting. So I want to take the example of the Chinese woman that, for whatever reason, has decided she's going to marry a USA guy. And if you were to come to me and say, what do I need to do to make that happen? Of course, the first thing I would say is, please read my book, East-West Marriage. The second thing I would say is go to my Wife University website, wifeuniversity.com. Go to my video audio presentation page. Find it's called EWM Episode 1, Part A and B, and I have a Yoku.com link there to it so you can see it. It's a 50-minute video where I give a kind of lecture presentation on the methods and processes of hooking up and connecting with the USA man. So I would first tell you to do that. Let me let you know a couple things that I've been asked. I've had an interesting experience with quite a few women who have asked me to marry them. And I always find it kind of interesting because, as you know, the standard way is a man should ask the woman. But I'm never offended if a woman asks me. But what amazes me is when they ask me and they really don't know me that well. I want to give you an example. There's a gal who, talks to me every now and then, and she's always very polite when she does. Hello, how are you? And she's always made it very clear she wants to come to USA. And then the other day, she just pops me the question and just flat out asked me, will you marry me? And I was quite surprised. And it kind of symbolized something to me that a lot of the women of China don't quite know the conditions that men have. And I will state, as though it applied to all men, which of course it doesn't, I will state my conditions for marriage. And as much as I should not speak for all USA men, because believe me when I say I don't, Let me say, though, that I am not that uncommon in this approach to things about what I would want. This is similar where a woman will say, will you come to visit me? And I will tell her, well, I've got conditions. Before I'm not just going to leave California, fly over to China to meet some woman that I've hardly even talked to. So let me get into that a little bit. What the conditions are. All right. The first one that I will tell you is that you need to be talking to the man all the time. And I think I've said this in other episodes. I'll say it again here. Get off the chat system and talk to him. You can do it on a Skype call for free, which is the best way, I think, is on a Skype call where you've got video cam. You can see his body language to you, and he can also see your body language to him. Do not forget and do not ever underestimate the importance of body language. The way that you are sitting there talking, flipping your hair, holding your neck, either frowning when he says something you don't like to hear, but it's important for him to realize you're frowning so he knows maybe not to do that, or grinning and smiling at things he said that he might not know you like, and so he might not go there again. Stuff like that. You want to make sure he sees your reaction to him. And I want to tell you, you want to do that all the time. You want to be on Skype with the guy every day, if you could, at least, and for a long time. Now there are obviously going to be situations that come up where you're too busy, you've got work going on, and stuff's happening. I will tell you that if all you could do is a 5-minute Skype session with him, do it. In other words, get on there and just say, look, I miss you, but I want to tell you I got all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and I can't talk very long, but I did just want to see you, and just see him, even for 5 minutes. When you get on Skype, realize that you are creating the avenue and a primary process of getting him hooked and addicted on you. So, be on when you're on there. Don't get too lazy. I mean, I've been surprised with how some women are on there, and I can just tell that it must be the end of the day or something. And, they have very little to say. Sometimes I catch women at like dinner time or something, and they're eating. And I can tell you that it's kind of, if the guy isn't eating, because of the time differences, it may be your dinner time when it's not our, it might even not be our breakfast time. So I will not be eating and you are, and it's just kind of a weird thing. I don't know. I want to say not. I want to advise women, don't eat when you're on Skype. Or if you eat, just eat little stuff. I mean, it's really kind of weird watching a woman just eat a whole bunch of food while you're talking to her. And you're not eating at all. It's just kind of like, wow. I want to say don't eat. I've had women who know me very well get really super relaxed with me and do things like take off their makeup, put a mask on, that makeup mask that makes you look like a monster. Even go into the toilet and pee with me on their laptop. So, and in a way, it's kind of funny how men will react to that. Some men may not like that at all. I find it kind of oddly a compliment that you think we are so close together that we could be like that. Because, of course, if we were married and living together, I would see you with your mask on. I would see you in the toilet, and so to some extent, I don't really mind it when that happens. It makes me feel like, wow, she must be really, super comfortable with me. One thing I want to advise also is what I describe as the hanging out session on Skype. I had this really cool girl. I liked her. She was in Chengdu. Her name was Lily. Lovely, lovely girl. And she and I would just hang out on Skype where we wouldn't necessarily be talking to one another. she would be, she had an iPad, so she'd be just sitting there, like reading the news on her iPad, and then she had a PC on, so I would be seeing like a side view of her as she's reading, and then I might be doing stuff like this might be the end of the day for her, so it's the beginning of the morning for me, so I could be doing work stuff. And, we would spend like several hours together like that. And I really enjoyed it. She was a very beautiful girl, and it was a pleasure for me to see her. And then every now and then we would talk, and then I'd have to leave the house or something, and I'd say, "Hey, honey, I got to go now. I'll see you tomorrow." And we did that every day. It was one of those things that if you have a man doing that with you, he will become addicted to you. And this is part of the process of bonding and creating a tight, kind of relationship between the two of you. And you can't do it on like chatting. You can't do it on emailing. It just is not the same, let me tell you. And of course, it is also true that it is much better in real, and the man should come out there and see you in real. And I'm all for that. But I want to tell you, before any of that happens, you got to do a whole lot of Skype sessions. And in other words, do a lot of that, and then the guy will come out. Now, if you've done a lot of that, and he isn't planning a trip or doesn't want to come out, then you probably, unfortunately, aren't, for whatever reason, finding him in the way you need him to be to marry you. I would generally agree, if the guy's not going to come out and see you, it's probably not going anywhere. Now, don't look at that as the result of him maybe playing games or not being serious. It just means it doesn't mean he's not serious about marrying or finding the right girl. It just means that it's not you. And that doesn't mean he's not serious. It just means you're not the one. And what you need to do is obviously move on. Obviously, nobody wants to waste their time with a guy that's not happening. In fact, that's what happened with my relationship with Lily is I got the idea after a while she wasn't really into me, unfortunately, as much fun as we had. And I asked her, hey, I don't think you really want me. I was kind of sad, but I was a little bit shy to ask her. It's one of those questions where you ask it and you don't really want to know the answer. But I wanted to ask anyway because I wanted to know the answer. This is a very pretty girl, by the way. She was an accountant and just really hot and young and wow, kind of girl. And I would love to have married her. I mean, she's that kind of girl. And she told me in a very nice and honest way, you're not the one. And I don't mind hanging out with you. I can tell if I lived in Chengdu, she'd be the kind of girl that we'd go ride bikes together, we'd hang out a lot, but she didn't want to marry me. And I don't know quite why, but I don't really question that. If someone doesn't want me, I don't sit there and start accusing her of, oh, you're a bad girl, you're just playing games with me, you're not serious. I know she's serious about wanting a husband. She just didn't want me to be that guy. It's not because she's some kind of bad girl. So I ended up stopping that. I realized, unfortunately, that was not going to go forward in the way I wanted it to. And I figured, well, I'm not going to waste her time anymore or my time. So I stopped that. But I can tell you it was a very nice thing. And she got my conditions. In other words, my conditions are that you spend a lot of time with me on Skype and see me a lot, talk to me a lot in a very relaxed, like ordinary way, kind of like if we lived together. It'd be like, I see you, you see me, and, it's not like we're out on some fancy dinner date or something. We know each other now enough that we really know if we want each other. And that's kind of what happened. And the only thing about it is, let me give an example. Just because my experience with Lily didn't work out, you could easily say, oh, so that was a waste of time. And I would say, no, wrong. It was not a waste of time. You need to do that. In other words, there's no way you're going to know if this is right or wrong unless you do that. And it also means you might get to a point where you find out, no, that's not the right one. But just because that was the end result doesn't mean it was a waste of time. It means that you explored something fully and completely, and it didn't work out. And it's kind of like, okay, let's figure out what to do next. And I'm sure, by the way, she's a beautiful girl. I'm sure she's found some handsome guy and whatever. So she'll do fine, I'm sure. The second condition I want to talk about that is a requirement for me. The first thing is I want to see and talk to you a lot. That would be a definite requirement. The second one is I want to make sure that there's two kinds of chemistry I want to tell you about. One is a kind of emotional chemistry where you and I get along, we can talk a lot, and we can talk easily, effortlessly, simply, naturally. Now, I've said elsewhere, you're not going to find many guys that you can actually do that with. And when you do find one of those guys, you definitely want to hang on to them and don't let them go. The other one, though, I want to share with you is a physical chemistry, because one of the lessons I learned with the experience I had with this Beijing girl named Josie of Beijing, we had a huge level of emotional chemistry. We could talk for a billion hours, a lot of phone calls, a lot of Skype sessions. It was all good. But we had zero physical chemistry, and I'm not sure why, but it just wasn't right on a sexual level. She had zero sexual interest in me. And as I explained to her, that doesn't make her any kind of a bad person. I mean, just the fact that her body is reacting to my body in a kind of negative way doesn't mean she's somehow bad or anything. And she would later find a guy that she reacted very positively to physically. And so she definitely had it in her to get sexual with a guy. It wasn't with me. And I spent a lot of time with her and I kind of had this stupid idea that I could probably fix that. And all women can laugh at me for thinking I could ever fix that. That was a mistake on my end. And by the way, I'm always kind of laughing when women tell me, as though it's a great revelation, that I made a mistake. I can tell you about the relationship with my ex-wife, and you can say, well, you made a mistake with her. And I'm like, no kidding. So I know I've made mistakes. Believe me, I know it. And, we all do, and I have. I made a big mistake with my ex-wife. Also, with Josie, I made a huge mistake in thinking, well, let me go back. With my ex-wife, I made the mistake of thinking I could get a woman that I loved who didn't love me, and I would somehow get her to love me. It was just stupid on my part. And in that case, we had a great level of physical chemistry, my wife and I, with zero emotional chemistry. We just fought we can't talk for 4 minutes without getting into a big fight. And then I had just the opposite with Josie. We had huge, endless emotional chemistry, but zero physical chemistry. And each one was kind of a deal breaker because you can't, as you can well imagine, you need both, for a good marriage. So what I want as a condition of marriage, and I want to tell you that, most men will be like this, is I want that emotional chemistry, which I can only know if we have it or not if you spend a lot of time with me on the phone and on Skype. The other one now I've been learning about, I really like a lot, is Weixen. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's called WeChat here in USA, but Weixen. Very cool system. It's a video chat. It's a voice chat, which is really cool because you can speak and leave like a voicemail message to people, and they can speak right back to you, which is really kind of nice. But the other condition, in addition to this emotional connection concept, is I want to make sure we are going to have a physical chemistry. So you're going to, at some point, need to show a willingness to do some kind of sexual activity with me on Skype. And if you just said no, 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 and no to that, I will tell you right now, I would not come to see you. I wouldn't come to visit you. I wouldn't really trust that we had what is needed. If you were telling me, I just don't do that, I don't want to do that, I'm just not interested in that, I would say, no problem, bye. And as I put in my book, Good Mom, Bad Wife, I wrote it like this. Every girl has a right to say no, and every man has a right to say bye-bye. And the bottom line is, if you keep just saying no, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, and I describe this in my book, East-West Marriage, as well, you need to do something. So don't just sit there and it's just so easy to say no. But I know a lot of women who are like over 30 and they're still saying no, and they just think that's going to work. And it won't. Let me just tell you. You say no to a man, he is not going to be serious about you. Now, if your idea is, well, I don't want us, I don't want the relationship to be based on sex, I want to tell you to, like, go back to kindergarten, go back to first grade, second grade, go back to eighth grade, go back to high school. Get an education and figure out life. We want sex. I mean, don't be silly about it. And if you're not going to give it to us, trust me, we're not going to be with you. If you can tell me what a great cook you are, how well you can clean, you know what? I don't care. I'll hire a maid. I'll hire a cook. I'll microwave my food. But if you're not going to have sex with me, forget it. Two things. If you're not going to talk to me and you're not going to have sex with me, I am not going to marry you. It's that simple. So those are two fundamental conditions. I want fundamental conditions of marriage. I want everyone to understand you must do. And if you won't do it, then you should just cross USA off your list, as I don't think anybody here is going to be interested in you. I have been amazed, and I want to give you a word, astounded. Astounded means basically amazed, shocked, at how many women have the attitude. I just can't, I cannot believe it. An attitude of, I don't want to talk to you. I want you to marry me, but I don't want to talk to you. I'm like, what the hell? I had, and by the way, these are women who are smart women, not just like, I mean, I know one, this one that comes to mind, she's a doctor, for crying out loud. She's an eye doctor, and doctors have a special problem in China that they're smart, and Chinese men apparently don't like really smart women. They want to be way smarter than a woman, so the doctors, a lot of them are single. I've met many, many doctors, and they're very lovely and etc. And this one, we got along quite well. We spoke, but then she just wouldn't talk to me anymore. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? How come I can never reach you? And what she told me was, look, I don't really want to talk. I want you to come out here and be here, and let's get real. I don't want to do this like on phone and stuff. And I told her, well, I don't really want to go. I'm not going to go see a woman that doesn't talk to me. It's kind of we have this saying in USA, it's a chicken and egg problem. And it comes from this interesting idea, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because you need the chicken to lay the egg, but of course we all know the chicken came from an egg. And it's the same kind of idea for the Chinese woman. The bonding and the real relationship occurs when the man goes there to see her. And they will also say it occurs when you get married. It's like, all this stuff you want about sex, we'll do that when we get married. Trust me. And the USA guy says, I don't trust you. You got to realize, most of us have had a wife who completely stopped having sex after we got married. So when you say, oh, don't worry, I'll do that after we're married, we don't believe it. Okay? And you have to understand what our last wives did to us to really understand that. You're going to have to show a lot of activity before marriage. And if you don't, it's not going to happen. It's just going to be what we call a deal breaker. So if you don't want to do it, you can just go ahead and cross it off the list. So what I want to suggest is a lot of talking, and realize that the sex part can happen in a natural way on Skype. And in my book, East-West Marriage, I give kind of a breakdown of a lot of different levels that you can engage in. including some very small levels, where you can at least do some sort of sexually provocative flirtation on Skype. I mean, it's not going to kill you to do some kind of sexual mimicking, faking that you're doing something or something. You just have to say, don't do zero. And you also need to see. I mean, don't get mad at me for saying this, but you got to see the guy naked, and you got to look at him, and you need to like what you see. I mean, you can't marry a man whose body disgusts you. So if you look at the guy and you're like, oh God, I don't want to sleep with him. If that's how you feel, that's, by the way, nothing wrong or evil in that feeling. In other words, if that's your reaction, that's your reaction. That's okay. But drop the guy. In other words, you can't be married to that man. You don't want to marry a guy whose body disgusts you or who physically just doesn't turn you on. Now, you can say, well, I'm not going to know that until he comes and sees me. You know what? It's not true. Check it out on Skype. He can pull his pants down, show his cock to you, show him your body. I mean, you can figure it out. Don't tell me you got to have him in your city before you know that. You see him on a good video PC, you're going to know. And you're going to know, at least you're probably going to know if the answer is no. Like you can look at a guy, and I remember with Josie, she was turned off. She knew she was turned off. She did not need to see me in Beijing to know if she was turned off or not. She knew seeing me on Skype. She's like, no, I don't want that. I mean, it was not like a, well, let me think about it. Maybe if you came all the way over here, it might be different. It wasn't like that at all. It was like, no, I know right now I don't want that body. So she knew. And I'm sure you could know too by just looking at a guy. And you need to do that. Now, I'm not talking about the first Skype or second Skype or third. I'm saying 30 Skypes down the road, whatever. Explore it, okay? And figure it out, because let's get real about this. If you're going to be married, you're going to need to have the guy hold them and sleep with them and have sex with them. And you want to be doing that all the time. If you don't like the guy's body, don't think for a second your marriage is going to work, because what will happen is you're not going to be having sex with him, and trust me, he will find another girl. And when he does, you're going to have a big reaction. You're going to be all pissed off at him, and he's going to be like, well, honey, you're not doing it, so I found someone who will. You're going to think he's a bad guy. He's thinking you're a bad girl, because you're a bad girl for not having sex with him. He's a bad guy for having a sex outside the marriage. But let's face it, there's a whole mismatch going on there. So let's find out about this mismatch problem way, way before. And I mean even before he comes to China, because let's face it, he doesn't need to go there and see you if you don't want him. Isn't that simple? If you don't want his body, just forget it. Don't worry about it. Find a guy whose body you like. Now, you can say that beauty is, there's inner beauty, there's outer beauty, and all that's, really a lovely subject. But I'm talking about raw animal attraction. You either have it for the guy or you don't. And I don't care if you have it because of his inner beauty or you have it because of his outer beauty or a combination of both. You're impressed with his brain, his thinking, his speaking, his education, his looks, the color of his eyes, the sound of his voice, the smell of his skin, whatever it is. It's sort of like green light or red light. You either are turned on or off. And if you're turned off, you got to let the guy go. Now, it's the same way with the guy, I might add. It's a little easier for men to be turned on by a woman, though. We're not quite so finicky or particular, like, oh, the tone of your skin wasn't quite right for me, so I'm going to say no. I mean, we rarely say no. So you need to do that, though. You need to show us you as well. And you need to make sure you want to make sure the man has a sexual chemistry for you. The last thing you want to do is be in a marriage where the guy does not want to have sex with you. Let me tell you, many women suffer that. I know this for a fact because I've talked to them. They're like, my husband won't touch me. And it's the darnest thing. It's like, wow. And these are women that are, more or less beautiful. So I don't know what's going on there. But nevertheless, that happens. It can happen both ways, and it can be a breakdown in what is called physical chemistry. And what I'm saying is you figure that out up front. You got to know that for a fact. You can't be telling anybody, oh, we'll figure that out after marriage. I've had a lot of Chinese women that tell me we'll get the emotional attachment after marriage, we'll get the physical attachment after marriage. And this is the chicken and egg. No. We're going to have all that before marriage. And if we don't have it, we're not going to get married. That's simple. Third condition. So the first one is talk to me all the time. Second one is get sexual with me and make sure you like my body. If you don't like my body, I don't want you. Okay, that's simple. And if you don't want me, I don't want you kind of thing, all right? So figure that out, all right? The third one that's extremely important and normally not a problem is I want a baby, so you can be willing to have a baby. Now, let me tell you things about that. Not all men want another child. And it's just really normal for you to be talking. If you want one, you talk to the guy about it and make sure he's okay with that. Most men are very much okay with it. I mean, when you get married, it's like, to me, that's the point of being married. But you could imagine if you marry a guy and he's older and he's already had kids, maybe in that environment, he doesn't want more. So that's a possibility. Or, there could be various reasons why someone would not want kids. And also, you could be a woman who doesn't want kids. I've met women who are really certain they don't want to have another child. To me, these are all legitimate personal choices. There's nothing wrong in you saying, I don't want a kid. That's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong in that. You need to find a guy who's in the same way. So, and the good news is there are men out there, I'm sure, like some guys already had kids, and he would say, oh, that's all right. I've got 3 kids already. I don't need another kid. I just need another wife. So that could work. But you got to make a match on that. If you want a kid and he doesn't want one, or if you don't want one and he does, that's going to be a mismatch. And my idea on that is I would never ask anybody to compromise on that. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. I think marriage is filled with compromise, but on issues about children, I wouldn't want to compromise. In other words, if you meet a man who wants to have a kid, don't try to talk him out of it. Just let him find a girl who wants a kid. And the same way with a man. If a man meets a woman who doesn't want to have a child, I don't think the man should be convincing her, oh, you want to have a baby, it'll be so cool, and, blah, 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 and give you like 100 reasons why you should have a kid. If you don't want one, don't have one. The last thing you want to do is have a baby with a mom who doesn't really want to have a baby. That's not fair to the child, not fair to anybody. And the earth does not need an unwanted child. So if you don't want one, you know what? Don't have one. But find a guy who also doesn't want to have one. Now, me, it happens. I want one. And not all men are like that. Not all men want one. The other thing I want to talk about, speaking of babies, is a related subject that has come up again and again that I find a very interesting concept where women want to marry a man who doesn't have kids. And I know about this subject very well. When I first met Sabrina, my ex-wife, she told me that I would not want you if you had a child, which I thought was rather ironic because she had a child from her first marriage. And she said, well, I have one and you're not allowed to have one. And I remember I asked her, well, why do you feel that way? Now, the good news is I didn't have a kid, so it wasn't a problem. But I wanted to understand why. And her statement was, I don't want you to have any kind of reason to have a relationship with your ex-wife. If you have a kid, then you do, because you got to deal with the kid, and there's issues about visits and this and that, and it's like a connecting system with an ex, and she did not want that. I said, okay. And by the way, she was like non-negotiable on that. She could have met like the world's greatest man on planet Earth, and if he had a kid, she wouldn't date him. That was it. Okay. And other women I have met more recently who have not wanted to go forward with me because I've got 3 children with me. Um, they have said, I want the man focused on me and not his kids. And I kind of think that's a little bit, I don't know, it's seemingly narcissistic for a woman to do that. Like, it's all going to be about me. You got to focus on me. But you know what? It's kind of in the same way, though, as what I said about kids before. If you want a man that doesn't have kids, then you find a man who doesn't have kids. And I think for that reason, on most dating sites, they have you put that data like right up front, like, do you have kids? Because they realize there are people that don't want a guy with kids, or a lot of men don't want a woman with kids. And for that reason, it's like, tell me right up front. I can tell you the good news about a lot of men, though, is we don't have a problem with a woman having a child, especially if we have kids, because then I always like it if I meet a woman who has kids, because then she's not going to be able to give me any sort of negative concept, well, you have kids, and I don't like that, because, hey, you got kids, so what the heck? Oddly enough, Sabrina still was of that view, even though she had a kid, but whatever. It can be a one-sided, suffice it to say, women can be one-sided in their positions. I can have a kid and you can't, that kind of thing. Well, one of the things I wanted to tell you, though, or warn you about is, if I can give you an example of Josie. One of her issues with me is that I had kids, and she gave me this free and clear concept. I want you free and clear, which means I want you, and I don't want the rest of your world of children and dogs and all the things you got going on. So she ended up finding like a 40-something guy who did not have a wife yet and did not have kids. Well, it got me to thinking, and since then, there's another girl I know very well, and it's somebody I knew from quite a while ago. It kind of disappeared on me, and we've kind of reconnected. And she's a nice girl. She lives in Guangzhou. She has now told me, she was not of this view before, at least I didn't think she was, but she's now told me of this view that she doesn't want a man. She wants a man. She's 33, never been married. Okay, very pretty woman. I'm like, what the hell? Why are you still single? And now she's looking for a man who doesn't have kids. And she and I are friends, so I advise her. I say, look, if you're 33, probably the guy's going to be plus 10 years older than you. So let's put him somewhere. The typical candidate for you is going to be around 43. Now, she tells me, no, I want a young guy. I want a guy who's like my age, 33, 35. And I'm thinking, well, okay, but I don't think that's going to happen. In other words, a 35-year-old guy will probably marry a 25-year-old girl. A 45-year-old guy will marry a 33-year-old girl. So I really think her age range for the man is going to be more someone over 40. And I told her, I said, look, I want to tell you, most men who are over 40, who have never been married, don't have kids, are losers. Let me just say it like that. They're losers. There's a reason. And now I realize a lot of men who are over 40 who have never been married will probably think I'm a real jerk for saying that. And I will say to them, prove me wrong, because I'd love to see examples of good guys who are over 40 who have never been married and are not losers. I have seen many who just totally are. And they have no direction, no responsibility. And it's kind of like the woman I told you about earlier who said, I just want it all about me. So the guy's like, I take care of myself. I don't take care of anybody else. It's just me, 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 me. I don't think he's a good guy. I think a guy needs to be giving and family oriented. I think the ultimate irony is you want a man who is family oriented and you're picking one who isn't. It's like, I want a guy who's going to be ready to settle down, get married, have children. The guy I'm selecting has never done that before. And somehow you think he's going to do it with you. And I think it's kind of like if you were, and I know I've said this in other episodes, but let me say it again. It's as imagine yourself as the president of a factory, and you're hiring somebody to be, let's say, the chief financial officer, and they've never had that job before, but they're ready to do it now. I don't think that's the person you want to hire. You want to hire someone who's done that same job for 10 years somewhere else, and they were good at it, and now they've left that company, and now they're going to come to your company. I think being a family person and having the type of personality and the responsibility of doing that is one that, if you want to know if a guy can do it or not, well, one thing is ask him, have you done it? So if, like for example, with me, I was married 15 years, 3 kids. I've done it. I know what it is all about. And I don't say I've done it perfectly. I don't say I haven't made a billion mistakes. But the bottom line is I've done it. So I was telling this gal, this Guangzhou gal, hey, look, you meet some guy who's over 40, never been married, doesn't have kids. I don't think he knows what he's doing. I don't think he has a clue. Do you think he's going to suddenly become this wonderful family man with you? I think you're dreaming. I think you're wrong about your choice. And I hate to say that because I hate to talk people out of their preferences. Like, if you want a guy without kids, then you should go find a guy without kids. I want to warn you, a lot of those guys are losers. And the man with kids is probably a better guy, if you really think about it. Check it out. I guess the best way is try both. Look at some men with kids, and look how he interacts with his kids, because that tells you a lot about him. One complaint I got is the man will be so endlessly focused on his children that he won't be able to focus on you. Well, I think you can check that out. That is a real danger, and I agree with that. That concept is the real danger. So check it out. Hang out with him and see if he ignores you and just deals with his kids' issues. Women can be the same way, by the way. I know this example of a lovely girl, very beautiful. She really, I don't know why her husband left her for whatever reason. She has a lovely young son. And her whole life is that son. And I mean, she can't do anything other than issues with her kid. And any man coming into her life will definitely be, a far second place to her son. And she's going to have her own adjustment issue of making the man feel important enough to be her husband. And by the way, so far, no takers. And I think she's going to have a hard time with that. And she may just remain a single mom for a long time. I think there'll be a time in her life when the kid gets a little older, the child's fairly young, that she can adjust and get more, man-oriented and less kid-oriented. I look at those as issues, hopefully, that could get solved with some discussions, some very open discussions. You can tell a guy with kids, look, I'm okay with you having kids, but don't treat me as a maid or a nanny or a cook. I'm not your kid's servant. And make sure I am an equal partner with you, and you're going to pay attention to me. Make sure you have that commitment from the man. Make sure you have that discussion. But also, it's not enough for the guy to say, oh, yeah, I'll do that. No problem. I understand what you mean. I want you to say 2 words. Prove it. Prove it. Prove you'll do that. And you prove it by hanging out with him, he and his kids. So when he comes to China to see you, he should bring his kids. Bring them out there. Maybe not the first trip, but the second trip. Or maybe the third trip should be your trip to USA, and you see him with his kids, and you see the family dynamics and how you're going to fit in to that. So I think those are all valid, very valid concerns that mature adults can figure out and work through. I want to talk about one more subject, and then I'm going to end this session. This is a subject that, dear to the whole concept of the conditions of marriage, is seriousness. I've had the following statement made to me by quite a few women. Are you serious about marriage? And my reaction is always this. I ask them right back, well, are you serious? Because I notice, number one, you've been single a long time and you've never been married. And my reaction is, I'm talking to a guy who was married. So I did it and you didn't. I did it for a long time and you didn't. I've done all the things you want to do, I've done, and you haven't done them. I have been in a serious relationship. You have not. I have had children. You have not. I have been married. You have not. I've done it. I've been there, and you haven't been. And I question them, are you serious? Because if you were serious, my idea is, then why haven't you done it before? And part of it, and I know the answer to that, I always love asking, I'm a lawyer, so I like asking questions where I know the answer. And the answer is, there's too many things they weren't tolerating. Tolerance is a huge issue in relationship. When you tolerate, it means there's something I don't like about you, but I'm going to still be with you even though you're doing that. Let me give an example. Let's say a guy is way too close to his mother, and he's calling his mom every day. You just don't like him. Like, will you just tell your mom to, leave us alone? Now, you could just say, you know what? I just don't want that. I'm not going to have that, and dump the guy. Or that's called intolerance. Or you can be tolerant and say, I'll deal with it, and hopefully the man will compromise. You can talk to him and say, could we just lighten up on your mom, and hopefully he'll grow up and call her once a week instead of 4 times a week. This is the hallmark of a successful relationship, where you have an issue, you discuss it, he listens, he reacts, he adjusts his conduct, not to 0, but meets you more than halfway, and you tolerate the rest. So, if you're serious about marriage, this is what I ask. Are you tolerant and compromising? And that's probably why you're not married, because you're not tolerant and you're not compromising. So I tell women, if you want to be serious about marriage, you need to do that. I want to tell you, I'll put it right back to you. You need to be tolerant and compromising. Are you? I am. I will tell you right now, if there's something I'm doing that you don't like, and you tell me about it, I'm going to try to fix it. I'm not going to go, I don't care that my conduct upsets you and that you don't like it. I'm just going to keep doing it anyway. Anybody who's serious about marriage can't take that position, or else you're not serious about marriage. So in the same way, if a man is like that, I'm going to give you an example. The doctor I was telling you about a little while ago, she's very serious about being married. She just tells me that all the time. I'm very serious. I want to be married. I want to be married. Well, I told her, well, there's something I want you to do. I want you to talk to me all the time. I want you to be available for me. I want you to be there. And when I, talk to me, come on. And she flat out told me she's not going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do that. I want you to come here. If you don't come here, I'm not doing anything. And I told her, I'm not going to go see you if you're not talking to me. Forget it. I'll go find a girl who'll talk to me. I'll go see that girl, and I'll marry that girl. I'm not going to visit. I don't want to know a girl who doesn't want to talk to me. Let me say it that way. I just, forget it. Well, here's seriousness of marriage. A man tells you, I want to talk to you. You don't tell him no. You say, okay. Now, you want him to visit you? You tell him, I'll tell you what, let's do a program here. I'm going to talk to you. We're going to do this, but you're going to come out here. and we're going to make a schedule. You're going to be here within 60 days. So she wants something from the guy. The guy should say yes to that, okay? He wants something from her. She should say yes to him. If both sides are no, then that's not going anywhere. Now here she is. She's serious about marriage. I'm serious about marriage. Neither of us could compromise the other's position. I would not tolerate her position. And I told her that. I will not tolerate this. If you don't want to talk to me, I'm not going forward with you. And she would not tolerate my thing that I won't visit her until she talks to me. I mean, it sounds kind of, to me, it was hard to believe this was a doctor and a lawyer having this discussion, because it's more like two 5-year-olds. It's like, hello, of course she needs to talk to me. And of course I need to visit her. And of course none of that's going to happen until she's talking to me on a regular basis. So that didn't go forward. And I can tell you right now, I question her seriousness. If she's serious, she'll do what I ask her to do. And I want to tell that is one of the conditions for all you girls out there wondering, how do I get these guys? A, do what they ask you to do. B, tolerate what they do. So, but don't be shy to tell them you don't like it. And a hallmark, if you want to know if the guy is serious, a lot of times women have asked me this question: how do I know if a guy's serious about me? Well, here's a simple way. Is he talking to you every day? Because let's face it, if he's not, he's probably not. If he is, he probably is, because why would he be talking to you every day otherwise? So that's one way to figure it out, okay? But the other way is, if there's something you would like to get him to do, and he's not doing it, and you're asking him to do it, and he's probably not serious, and you're probably, unfortunately, wasting your time with him. So here's the concept. It's compromise and tolerance. Those are two critical hallmarks of being serious. If you're not going to be like that, I would say you're not serious, or you're in dreamland. You think you could be married by being intolerant and uncompromising. And let me tell you, you go talk to any married couple about that. You can talk to 10,000 of them, and they will all tell you the same thing. You must compromise. If you can't compromise, you can't be married. Well, you may get married, but you're not going to stay married. Or you may stay married, but your marriage will suck, and it'll get into a loveless, touchless business arrangement where all you guys do is try not to hate each other more than you already do. And you don't want to do that. Life is too short. You should be in a good way with a good situation. You should be with a guy who you could say, honey, I don't like it when you do that. And he turns around and tells you, oops, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. Listen, though, I need to do it a little bit. How about I do it half as much? And you say, how about you do it a fourth as much? And he says, okay. And then you tolerate that fourth, whatever it is, talking to his mom, gambling, smoking cigarettes, drinking at night, whatever. Now, there's some behaviors that you are going to tolerate zero of. For example, if he's beating you, you don't tolerate that at all. Or if he's fooling around with other women, you don't tolerate that at all. In the same way with a guy. I mean, if you're cheating with other men, he's not going to tolerate that. So I wouldn't expect any man to do that. Or if you are endlessly berating him, insulting him, and putting him down, I would tell any man, do not tolerate that kind of behavior. Dump that girl and get a new one. Basically, if you're just not loving him. Nobody should tolerate a loveless marriage, although I know many do. And it just, to me, it's a pathetic form of life, and I want to get everyone into a marriage that isn't like that. Anyway, I wanted to let everyone know my concept of the conditions of marriage, and thank you for listening to another episode of Life University. And until we meet again, this is attorney author Herman Franck signing off.